While we're waiting, if anybody else wants to throw further suggestions on the Etherpad, we were a little dry on topics this morning, but uh, feel free to throw anything on there in the meantime that you would at all like to discuss. Favorite brand of beer?
Oh, I was talking, but apparently I didn't have my microphone on. Can you hear me now?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. Okay, so we have 11 people on the chat, as participants, which is good, a good turnout. So, is anyone new to this? One of the things I realized is that Jitsi is not familiar. This is not Zoom. So you should be able to see the Etherpad and the participants. So in my case, for instance, I've got a document. I can see people typing in it. That's the shared agenda, and you can throw questions or findings there. And then the participants, everyone's got their video off apart from me. There's no requirement to be on video, of course, although I think this is recorded as a video. And I think most of you have your microphones muted, so if you're speaking, you need to unmute your microphone. And if you wanted to be on camera, you need to unmute or undisable your camera. I see people are filling in the attendees now. That's great. Oops, sorry about that.
I'm gonna drop mine in a fire that I don't run into somebody.
So I do think that you get a bit more out of video meetings if you actually use the camera, because you can get reactions from people and you can read the room. So if people want to put their cameras on, they're welcome to. But on the other hand, there's no pressure. I've also heard that some people will not be in appropriate position to be on camera, like there's maybe things going on behind them. They just don't like it. So, but I will say that speaking to a dead room with no reactions is quite hard. Now, this isn't a presentation, obviously, but nevertheless, each time one of us is speaking, if there's absolutely no indication whether you're making your point connect or not, that it's not helpful. So, anyway, let's get going, shall we? And as Eric said before, some of you joined. We are a little light on topics, although these things tend to just sort of develop their own. So if you want to throw things on the agenda, we'll try and get through them. So we've got this thing here. I hope you guys can see topics. You can throw stuff in there. So I'm going to just kick off because this topic here, Swift compliance, is something that I suggested a while ago. I don't think I put it on for today specifically, but it's kind of landed
It just
there.
got carried. It just got carried forward because we had it on there from the last time, but it was kind of your baby, so we left
Yeah.
it.
I don't know whether anyone here is going to care, but I didn't care until I had to care. So I'm just going to briefly summarize what happened, and then you can stash that away in case it suddenly becomes relevant to you. So we've had an OpenStack-based private cloud for more than 10 years, doing financial data-related work for my employer, Bloomberg. One of the things that Bloomberg also does separately in the past was had some applications that connect to the Swift banking network. But about a year ago, or just less than a year ago, some of those became VMs on our cloud. And those VMs were subject to compliance. And then the regulator actually expanded the scope and said, well, actually, your platform needs to be compliant as well. So all of a sudden, our large pre-existing private cloud had to, in a rush, become compliant. When I say large, I mean it's not large like Amazon, but we're approaching 10,000 physical machines and 100,000 VMs, very round numbers. We didn't do too badly because we already run the machines fairly tightly. The actual hypervisors are the ones that are in scope. We already remove unwanted accounts. We update regularly. We have logging. We have statistics. We have role-based access. But we didn't pass on the first audit. I wouldn't expect anybody to. So the deficiencies that we had were not like terrible, but we had to tighten up access control. So for me to get onto a physical hypervisor where Bloomberg production VMs are running, I have to put in a request. It has to be approved by an authorized person. It has to be time limited. There's key logging. We had to demonstrate hardening, which is one of those evil buzz phrases. It just means you run something against your hosts and it finds configurations that are known to be weak and it recommends tightening, and then you tighten. Now, one of the things I thought would be useful to share is it's not that you run the audit and then you have to get to 100% score. We had a score of 60 something, and then we did a bunch of hardening. We got to something like 80. We actually rejected a bunch of the tests because they're incorrect or inappropriate for our situation. Now we are sort of nominally aiming at 100, but I don't think we'll get there because the actual hardening changes. The business asked us to do the entry level for the audit, but actually to run the second level. So it's a moving goalpost situation, but the auditor isn't looking for perfection. They're looking for a process where you self-assess, feed it back in, and not only do you have like a base state when you build a machine that is good, should we say, but you regularly reconverge your machines, whether you rebuild them or you run some tool that checks the configuration and converges it. So if you Google terms like Swift compliance and hardening, you'll find lots of vendors. It's just a wash with vendors saying, buy our product and win. But actually, a lot of it's open source or at least from familiar vendors. So I wanted to throw up some things here. CIS Security is a consortium. It's not really a vendor. And there's pre-hardened images there. There's like Ubuntu, RHEL, etc. And they just have the precautions already taken care of. And the precautions are really simple stuff like permissions on cron tab and separation of /temp and a bunch of other things. Like, you know, if you've ever been a Unix sysadmin, you'll be like, yeah, those are all pretty reasonable. And then a few ones that are a bit goofy, and you do have to be careful because you can harden a machine and also break it. There are some things where, you know, they say this is desirable, and then some open source software that you're running doesn't like that. You'll find CIS hardened images there. You'll find them from your distro vendor. You'll find them on, for instance, AWS has got like, you know, a hardened version of any AMI that you can ever want. Not that, you know, the scope of this meeting is Amazon, but like, this is really the leading way that you demonstrate that hardening thing. We happen to use Canonical as a vendor. So we actually had Ubuntu Pro as part of what we're already paying for support, and that has some useful tools. You can basically pull down the CIS audit stuff and run audits on your machines from some apt repos that they provide if you subscribe to Ubuntu Pro, but that is a paid vendor thing. And that actually is just a wrapper, a documentation and packaging around this thing, which I hope everyone can see. I'm pointing to OpenStack. That's an open source set of tests. So I don't believe you actually have to spend a penny if you don't have budget to you know, converge your systems to you know, an acceptable state. You may spend money. There are, you know, vendor tools around, for instance, restricted, key-logged, permissioned access, obviously, but you can do it yourself. And that's it. I don't want to go on too long about it because I'm not sure if anyone cares right now, but I will take any questions on that. You know,
I think it's good for any, you know, security, you know, security hardening aspects, you know, independent of Swift and stuff. That list of images is pretty cool. I could see some folks would have some good use for that, where they need to have a known, secure, auditable environment. You have to do so. You have to do the hypervisors and the control plane and all that stuff as well, not just the VMs, right?
so the VM started off as the things that the auditors looked at. Then the hypervisors became in scope. They expanded how aggressive they are about scope. We actually applied hardening to all the machines you manage, but we're only actually declaring that we're hardening the hypervisors because there's some, as I mentioned, some engineering conflicts between the hardening and some of the open source stuff that runs on the non-hypervisors. We have OpenStack control plane, we have Rabbit, we have MySQL, we have Ceph. I don't remember what the conflicts are, but we decided to just take advantage of the fact that the scope is literally the hypervisors. It was technically only the hypervisors hosting the VMs that connect to Swift, but since we live migrate VMs like all the time, we said no, all hypervisors are going to get tightened up.
If not, you got to do like an AZ with only, that your Swift things go to, and that'd be a pain.
No, we told the business that this is going to be a larger effort because we're just going to drag our product up to the standard.
Yeah.
For instance, if we just said, oh, we fixed 4 hypervisors, we're done, and then 6 months later they said, oh no, we hear that you live migrate, so you're going to have to recertify every time you live migrate. That would have been terrible. So we just did the whole fleet. Another thing that I didn't put there, you actually have to run the hardening regularly and keep the results and be able to show them on demand. And that's not complete. They are reasonable if you're going in the right direction. You can basically pass with some to-do items. So it can be extremely scary, but we went through it from a standing start with no idea what to do to passing in early part of this year.
Chris, do you have an example of? You said you just didn't implement some of the controls, or just said no. Do you have like an example of one that was like, oh, this wouldn't actually, we couldn't do this, otherwise it would break. Like, oh,
yes,
it would
so
break. Yeah.
So our Neutron implementation is Project Calico. That makes every OpenStack machine, hypervisors, control plane, etc., a layer 3 router. So one of their recommendations is to disable IP routing. So we're like, well, that doesn't apply to our product. So some of them were an absolute like no-brainer. There are other ones where we argued a bit, and I had to collate a spreadsheet of every test, at least that we didn't pass, with a verdict like, we'll fix this. We have fixed it, but it hasn't rolled out. We reject this test, and there is at least in the Ubuntu Pro stuff, and I'm not trying to make any kind of sales pitch for Ubuntu, you can tailor, I think it's an OpenSCAP thing, you can tailor the tests. So the test is an XML definition of thousands of tests, and they all have a Boolean protecting them. So if you change it from yes to no, that test doesn't run. The nice thing is it then produces beautiful output. If anybody wants to see it, I'll share privately by email. You can get my email. A nice HTML document with your pass fail and severity, and the tests that you reject are taken out of that. So you actually, your score goes up a bit as you tighten it down to what actually applies. Because it's not that they claim that 100% of OpenSCAP tests are mandatory. It's that they need to see that you have a process where you decide what is hardening for your environment. So it's almost like you're guaranteed to have the ability to pass if you're diligent, because you just have to have a process, follow it, have documentation, send it to them. If this suddenly slams onto you with your private cloud, or your public cloud even maybe, don't despair. It was a lot of work, but we got through it. So, and we have a small team. That cloud that I was mentioning, the software part of that, like in other words, not data center, is like less than 30 people. So
yeah, this is actually great timing for me, because I'm taking my cloud to layer 3 only, and which interesting challenges there. So I'm extremely interested in stuff like this, like OpenSCAPy. And Pierre, I think you'd linked the Ansible lockdown roles. I'll be checking that out shortly.
Yes, we file these, extensive security plans that are 80, 90 pages. And the guy who has shepherded all of our systems for, I don't know, at least a decade through this has recently retired. So any sort of automated Anurag Shankar would be fantastic.
So actually, again, I can only speak from experience. The Ubuntu Pro comes with an optional huge pile of shell scripts that will actually fix your audit failures. We decided not to do them. Not that they're incorrect, and it would have been a help, but that's just somebody else's code. What we actually did was we put the fixes to tighten things into our software project the most idiomatic way, like according to our standards. So for instance, we're moving to be basically just homegrown Ansible. So the permissions are done just with plain Ansible rather than calling some, frankly, gnarly looking shell script. Because then if that broke and it was just a vendor script, we would then be asking them like, what's wrong here? So we wanted the hardening to be part of our, like a live maintainable part of our software project rather than an afterthought. It's not like we just put Spackle over the top of our nodes. We don't like paint security on top. It's like as you build a machine, we're making the defaults more correct and secure and demonstrably passing these tests. So anything else on that topic? I think I put that on the agenda when we first did this ops radio like 4 months ago, and it's finally made it. So it's kind of nice to talk about it. The next topic I see on the agenda is there's an ops session at the upcoming PTG. I will not be attending that, unfortunately. So Eric, I think you put this on, right?
I think Ildiko might have put it on here.
Yeah, we did it.
Okay.
Did it on my behalf. Sorry. I was trying to relay a thread that I posted on the OpenStack mailing list. Basically, at the last large-scale SIG meeting, we didn't have that much attendance, and it feels like it would be better to try to merge the various efforts around using OpenStack into a single thing. So I don't know if we should basically merge the large-scale SIG activities within the ops radio, just drop the large-scale SIG and just consider it's part of the ops ops meetup, ops operations, ops whatever, or if we should reform an ops SIG to shepherd all the user-facing activities. I have no firm suggestions, but I feel like it would be a good thing to have a discussion at the PTG with the various groups, the scientific SIG, the public cloud SIG, the large-scale SIG, the ops meetup people, everything, and try to present a uniform experience for everyone and have all those topics in the same place.
Well, I will say that the idea of the ops radio was to reform something that was cheap enough and easy enough that anyone could do it at the drop of a hat. It's really just like another Zoom meeting. So if large-scale SIG wants to sort of drop topics in here and they can include like what other meetings does the community need and when and that kind of stuff, by all means. Like this is just an idea of mine. It's not a property of mine at all. I just won't be at the PTG, unfortunately, so I won't be there. Won't be present to discuss it.
Well,
at least in person.
It's all virtual. So
Okay.
I think the proposal here is that our next ops radio occur. It will still be on a Friday. It'll just be we've been doing like the fourth Friday. This will be like a little bit later in the month, and it looks like it's in our same time slot too, right? What time is it UTC right now?
This slot is 1300 UTC.
1300, so it'd be 3 hours later.
Okay, sorry, I was getting confused between PTG and Summit.
Yeah,
my colleagues are planning to attend a Summit. I won't be going, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect. Good to me.
Yeah, that's just PTG is just a bunch of meetings, but it's easier to get everyone's attention. We could move it to 13 UTC if you think it's.
It seems to be helpful for people in other time zones. I guess especially like the APAC ones have been able to make this, but once it gets past like 10 p.m. their time, it starts getting a little dicey. But maybe PTG wise they'll be awake. I don't know how that works.
I'll have to look at my schedule for PTG.
If
it hasn't been on my radar.
If they have a slot at 1300, that would keep us consistent, since most people have been able to have said that works best so far.
Yeah, I think Ildiko made a strong case that 1300 works for this particular group because it is sort of global potentially. So that would be good, but I can try to make a later slot if that's
No, it's
what the decision is.
I can move it, and we haven't booked it yet, so we can
Okay.
certainly move it and place it at the same 13 UTC slot. I don't think there is any issue with that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just checking that it actually exists in the PTG slot machine. 13. Yeah, it's definitely here.
As far as the like the public cloud SIG and the scientific SIG, I think most of the participants in those are in Europe, some in Asia. So yeah, I mean, I would expect 1300 to work well for trying to get those folks involved too.
Okay, I'll place it on the agenda. I'll use the Ops Radio branding, and I'll put the topic in the next meeting, Ops Radio, so that we can discuss hopefully with a larger group with the PTG advertisement in addition to the usual promotion we make for it. Cool. And if you have strong opinions about it, feel free to respond to the thread on the OpenStack mailing list and between now and then.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure that the decision on the mailing list is reflected back in this Etherpad, because this Etherpad is, at least, when we get to a few days before the next Ops Radio, that's got like the definitive time slot. So I'll make sure that there's no confusion there by then. I see some more discussion on the compliance. There's a great point here. Stack HPC uses Ansible, so there's apparently a lot of resources for hardening in the Ansible area. I actually didn't know that myself, so that's great. We were kind of doing it ourselves, as I mentioned. We're just kind of making sure that the configuration changes we make meet our coding standards and are in the logical place. So if we're configuring SSH somewhere, we tighten it there. We don't like configure SSH and then later some script runs that meddles with that. So the next agenda item, Nova scheduler memory leak. Has anybody ever seen anything like this? I'm struggling to remember because we did see a performance regression with OpenStack Caracal that we recently moved to, and the guys have only just recently nailed it down, and they actually bisected it and then regressed something and got the performance back. So that might be something I should follow up here about. I don't know if it's a memory leak, but definitely a performance degradation over time. It's kind of insidious because you when you're validating a newer version of your private cloud, the one thing that's hard to do is to test over a long period of time at scale, because you don't tend to have another cloud lying around. I will grab the public information about that, and I will put it on the agenda here.
Is there an open bug?
I think so. Yeah, we try to upstream at least the bad stuff we find, and sometimes the fixes. So I don't know if it's the same thing as a memory leak, though. It just seemed to be, well, it might be a leak actually, because it gets slower and slower because it's doing more and more work. So yeah, I'll follow up on that one. We just recently got to Caracal, and we're very happy about that. Although we still have some Mitaka clusters, so if there's anybody here who's like, I need a safe space to mention that I'm running old OpenStack, please help. Mitaka, we have 4 left, 4 clusters.
I still have some old stuff laying around too.
So that was
an old cluster nobody can get out of.
Yeah, the memory leak was my item.
Okay.
It's I can't find a bug, and it's too weird and hand wavy to actually file one. I think. So we went from Caracal to Epoxy, and then I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, the killer got Nova Scheduler, and which was weird. So we fired it up, and sure enough, yeah, after a couple hours, individual but not all Nova scheduler worker processes start exploding in resident memory use. They stop responding to rabbit messages. We see timeouts in Nova Conductor, but the queues are empty. It's not like it's not picking up. It's picking up the messages out of rabbit and just like not doing anything is what it really looks like. And so,
So,
yeah, I'm
Mike,
not
if
even
you
sure
haven't,
how to. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if it's not concrete enough for you to file a bug report, maybe you could just put down symptoms here, so
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
actually look at that and compare it to what we have in, Slack and stuff about what we found and what we narrowed down. But it sounds like you've gone past Caracal. Did I hear that?
yeah. However, like a month after, our Caracal cloud did that once, which was bizarre because I would have not have expected that to happen. I figured it was something to do with, epoxy and all the rip out of eventlet, but yeah, it's just too weird.
The side note: the Caracal cloud is a factor smaller than the epoxy one.
I'm just trying to capture this. I hope you don't mind since you're saying it. By the way, this meeting is recorded, so if you're sharing stuff that you don't want to be permanent, then bear that in mind. I'm taking notes here because I'll try and see whether we know at least something about the Caracal slowdown that might be a clue here.
Yeah, and if anybody has any ideas for like, I'd love to slap a debugger on this, but it looks like maybe that's not a great way to do this. Like the classic GDB or something. But if anybody has any ideas for like how to figure out where what exactly it's up to, I'd love to hear them.
Are you running in debug so you'd see any warnings that pop
Yeah,
up as you're going along? So it's
yeah.
not generating any sort of like warnings like it failed to clean up something or
No. I mean, it's churning along, doing all of its check-ins, and
and
yeah,
it's a gradual over time or it spikes all of a sudden.
gradual over time, just kind of at a steady rate. So I've got a restarting on like I don't know, 8-hour cron job.
Is it so it's like over like within a day? It
Oh yeah,
usually is.
a couple times a day, but we have a lot of churn.
I was just how many instances are you launching a day or
Uh,
migrating or
Launching, migrating, probably I don't know, 300 or 400.
interesting. Need
Lots
some
of we shelve and unshelve like like nobody else.
well, it'd be interesting to see if it's like maybe if you have some sort of like breakdown of which operations you're doing. It might be some particular operation that's causing that. Might be like I never shelve or unshelve. Well, I mean, once in a while, but not on a regular basis. I don't use shelve or unshelve at all. So I'm just not having looked in the code to see how specific that stuff is. Maybe there's something in there that gets triggered by because you would think somebody like Exos or something would run into that.
Yeah,
Presumably they're launching like thousands per day or
yeah,
something.
that's one of the weirdest parts is like I don't know of anybody else seeing this. Like, why is it
One
us?
one debugging technique that I still remember from the days when I would do a lot of that is, if you can't debug the problem, can you trigger the problem to be worse? So, for instance, if we suspect it's shelving and you did 1,000 shelves and it was worse, then you'd have evidence like, I think shelving itself is actually leaking memory. If you did 1,000 and memory didn't change, then you could say, I don't think it's shelving, but maybe it's something else. That's just an idea. I see someone saying that shelving and unshelving is a particular pastime from Jesse L.
I would be a bit surprised if shelving was triggering this, because we're talking about the scheduler here, so there's not much related to shelving or unshelving that happens in the scheduler. The scheduler just picks where the instance is going to run, and should be mostly similar operations, launching a new VM versus unshelving one. So yeah, that's a weird one. Could you share some information about which distro you're using, and also if you have any special scheduler filters or waiters enabled?
Nothing particularly special. We use PCI pass-through. It's Ubuntu 2404, the Cloud Archive. Yeah, I think
On
that's
x86, I suppose.
x86. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, besides finding some instrumentation in Python to look at the memory allocation, I'm not sure where to start, right?
I mean, I've been known to drop a few extra debugging statements into the code, but I'm looking for the absence of things, I think, which is hard.
I see a comment from Jeremy at the bottom, but it might be apropos of this. There's a performance regression related JSON schema. I think that's familiar. I think that's one that we were tussling with recently. That's on the mailing list, so that might be a good place to for you, Mike, to go and look at and see if that could possibly be what you're seeing. And then I think there is a fix, because you can, well, at least I think our guys are able to patch or back out the JSON schema. This seems like it's not going to be resolved in this video meeting. So
Yep.
Should we move on? So a nice thing I see at the bottom there, shameless promotion. Well, there's no shame. A dedicated meeting to talk about Linux bridge to OVM migrations.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Also a CERN blog. Yeah, I can hear you, Rich. Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Exactly. So we've done one of these in the past, or no, two even, to discuss the veritable joys of migrating from Linux bridge to OVM. We've been very busy with that as of late. Right now, we are wrapping up our live migrations, and the blog post below details the previous part about the cold migrations we did. I think, let's see, for live migrations, we moved something like 1,500 VMs. And yeah, we are not, like, we've detailed how it has worked out. There are some things in the blog which we mentioned that we don't quite understand. Here's how we handled it. If you want to chat with us about that, please fill in the Noodle poll to find the best date to talk about that. I think last I checked, October 1st is in the lead. Apparently, the first 2 weeks of October are very, very poor for people. So I hope it works out somehow.
That's fantastic. I don't actually run either Linux Bridge or OVN, but it's nice to sort of hear from CERN again. Eric, your memory's better than mine. Who was the guy that we used to talk to regularly, and then he moved on to like Eurocontrol or something from CERN? Maybe Richard knows.
Not sure.
Eurocontrol, I don't know about that. Up until recently, Daniel was here on our behalf quite regularly, I believe. Lewis is also here, but he's still with us.
It was a couple of years ago. So there was someone who was big in the community, big at CERN, and I think actually hosted an ops meetup that I couldn't make.
Arnie?
No, Arnie's still there, isn't he?
He's still here.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, it's really nice to hear from CERN about OpenStack again. We don't run those technologies. We've been running Calico for 6-7 years now. And on the old clusters, we're on Nova Network. So that's great. Please do, as Richard said, if you are interested, please help them set the timing so there's maximum participation in the meeting to talk about stuff. Another topic I'm going to offer up, but I don't need to talk about it if people aren't interested. Live migration between Intel and AMD. So our fleet is all x86 64, but it's also all Intel, sourced CPUs. And then the hardware platform team is going to throw some AMD Zen 5 goodness at our cloud. And they had some assumptions about what we can do, and they were wrong. So I'll talk about that if people wish. I see 1 + 1, but I don't know if that's quite enough for a whole room full of people.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we're planning the next data center. It's bigger, more power dense, and we have some frustration with supply chain issues with Intel. I'm not going to actually ding or praise either vendor. Just assume that what we want is 2 vendors. So they said, well, we're going to buy AMD-based hypervisors. And so I said, what's the business goal here? We're not just going other vendor, right? You want to be able to buy AMD this year, Intel next year. Is that right? And they're like, yeah, probably. And I said, are you expecting us to solve the problem of live migration between an Intel VM, an Intel hypervisor, running a VM, and AMD? And they said, oh yeah, we're expecting you to solve that. So I dug deep into it. You can't do it. You can do it if you run a very plain vanilla elderly virtual CPU type, KVM 64 or something like that, or even some newer ones. But basically, you're already leaving a whole bunch of performance on the table. We run a processor definition that is almost exactly equivalent to Cascade Lake. So in particular, we enable nested virtualization, which is a flag that both vendors' chips support, but the name of the flag is different. And we enable hardware page table support for guests. So nested virtualization is pretty niche. Like maybe you don't allow it in your cloud, maybe you don't want it. We do have it in our cloud because we have Jenkins as a service, and one of the groups that does testing in Jenkins is our mobile app team, who run Android emulators in Jenkins. That amounts to nested virtualization. But page table support, which is either the EPT flag or the NPT flag, depending on the vendor, that's just a make your VM go fast thing. You want your hardware to do that. Well, you can't live migrate a VM between AMD and Intel with those flags exposed to the guests. And you might say, well, why would you believe this? Well, AMD is pretty hot on the business, and they actually invited us to a tech demo. It was on Zoom, and they showed us live migration forward and back. It's all good, right? But I asked, but are you enabling nested virt and extended page tables? And they said, we'll get back to you. And then they never got back to us because the answer is you cannot. So it's not actually a trap. It's perfectly fine to run mixed vendor x86 cloud. You can't have the feeling that they're one pool of compute. For instance, if you have a minimum size for an availability zone, like our standard is you can't go below 2 machines in an availability zone because you always need to be able to evacuate 1 machine if it has a fault. Well, now you need to have minimum 2 per availability zone per
Each type.
vendor. Yeah, so it's just another thing that wants to partition your capacity into slices. And the more times you do that, the more complexity you have in managing your capacity.
Yeah, I always ran managed to find a CPU type that covered everything I had, but they were always all Intel. But you can define your own CPU type and not have to go with something that's already in the config file.
That's what we do. As I said, we define a custom CPU type, and we tightly control it. So as of today, in our entire fleet, within a domain where there's shared storage, so basically Ceph cluster, we can live migrate any VM from any machine to any other machine on demand, and we do it thousands of times, thousands of times a week, right?
What are the AMD features named differently? Sorry, I had never used AMD's in my cloud.
Yes, so I'm kind of a chip geek. AMD invented this platform, right? They proposed an extension to x86 when Intel was trying to sell Itanium.
Right.
So virtualization is supported by a flag called VMX, and nested page tables are supported by a flag called NPT. Intel came along, and in those particular areas, their flags are different. So
okay, so it's mostly a naming problem.
SVM and EPT for Intel. So we have this definition, which is a virtual CPU type, but it has some non-portable Intelisms in it, which is unfortunate because there's another vendor where it's just selling x86 64, but it's AMD flavor, and it's actually it's interesting that Intel was actually the second supplier and diverted from compatibility. But I don't mean to ding either vendor. I think diversity is the right way. So, you know, the AMD product looks great, but we'll avoid getting. We're not going to do like mixed vendors in small availability zones. Put it that way. Like for the ones where we have hundreds or thousands of machines, it's fine to have big chunks of it one vendor, big chunks of the other, because basically, if you need to evacuate a machine or a whole rack, there's enough places to send those VMs that you're golden, right? You can get the hypervisors empty, you can power them down, fix the DIMMs, or re-cable them, or whatever you need to do. But if you're struggling to maintain parity in terms of capacity on small zones, then I would make them one vendor or the other. And live migration is the foundation of our product, quite frankly. We do it for machine issues, we do it for upgrades, we do it for machine decommissions, and we even do it for leveling the load on our cloud. So when we have a hypervisor where we're seeing CPU steal, we just sorry about that. We take some of the load on that busy hypervisor and move it to a more empty hypervisor. So we're just continually doing it. So if you don't do live migration, you should get into it. But you know, be aware that when you get that close to the hardware features on the whatever CPU platform you're on, you can get that to that point where you're not compatible with live migration. The reason for it is the CPU flags from the guest point of view. In other words, the CPU that it is born on will gate what it can be live migrated to. The target must be identical in the CPU flags it exposes. So you can set one, as I mentioned, KVM64. I think it looks something like a Pentium 4 or something. I mean, it's kind of weak. If your VMs are born with that as the CPU that is being exposed, then it'll live migrate to, you know, all Intel generations, all AMD generations just fine. But you're leaving performance on the table, and you cannot do nested virtualization. That VM can't have another VM inside it. And that was sort of this week's interesting discovery, because it's you know, a bit of a trap to have the business buy diverse hardware, assuming that the cloud team can just deal with it perfectly sometime later. It's actually not that simple. And you know, thanks vendors.
Do you ever have trouble migrating your largest VMs in terms of memory size?
Yes, absolutely. So we have an ongoing project to improve the performance of live migration. And one of the things we had to do is related to Calico, because it has some unfortunate edge conditions where if a hypervisor is empty, it deletes all of the IP tables and IP sets rules. And they take a while to reinflate. But the other thing that we see is live migration doesn't complete until the KVM process on the source has completed teardown. So if the VM was very large and had a lot of pages, that takes a long time. The VM sees effectively downtime because it's not actually kind of reanimated on the target until the original copy is completely torn down. And we actually have some discoveries around our configuration was preventing the use of huge pages. So there was actually far too many memory pages that have to be processed during the teardown. So a large VM is a challenge in the first place because you have to copy all of those memory pages. If it's large and busy, then it's making more dirty pages. And then if you have some suboptimal configurations, you may actually have this horrible pause where you've actually made the new VM, but you haven't made it go live yet because you're still tearing down the source copy. So that is a key challenge right now. And the other challenges are bandwidth. Like you need to copy that stuff across very fast, right? So, we used to run on 10 gig. We were very proud of it. Now we are on dual 25 gig, and it's like, now we want more. The next fabric is going to be dual 50, and then the new data center is going to be dual 100 to hypervisors, dual 100 gig.
Do you ever use the post copy features?
We have been testing post copy. So for those who are not familiar, post copy wakes up the new VM on the target before all the pages are finished transferring, and then page faults back to the source any page that hasn't been transferred yet. So it actually finishes copying after the VM goes live, which is kind of like sorcery to me, but it's there. The other thing that is probably very well known to people who practice live migration is there's a feature to converge performance. I forget what it's called, but basically it slows down your VM if it's not successfully catching up on the amount of dirty pages. So it actually kind of starves it, slows it down until it can catch up.
Auto converge. That's the
Yeah.
Our once we cross like the 250-ish gigs, we'll find that the copy operation finishes, and then when it goes to unpause the VM, QEMU just dies. Sometimes, not always. Usually, though.
So I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm kind of glad to learn it at the same time because we actively resist allowing VMs that big because they will be at least very slow to migrate.
You're clearly not neck deep in biologists.
Well, we have requests for people's like, I just need a terabyte VM. Can you do that for me? We're probably going to start having a different service level for giant VMs, possibly machine scale VMs, where when the host has a fault, for instance, they will have to actually be cold migrated, or basically they'll have to suffer downtime. Because we can give them big memory. It's just that we can't just seamlessly push it across to another host and carry on as if nothing happened. As you're eloquently explaining, it doesn't even work sometimes.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you try to assemble genomes with Perl.
I saw
Chris,
a comment on the chat about neck deep in biologists being a memorable phrase. I do agree. Go ahead. Someone was speaking.
I was just going to say, we have machine level VMs that are effectively, if the machine faults, they're down. Due to some software they run and memory usage, they effectively cannot live migrate. They just hard reboot. So those are just, anytime those machines have issues, they just go down.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping that switching to explicit huge pages might help this. As you noted, having a whole lot of pages out there is not ideal, especially when you're live migrating.
Yeah, it's early to be paging back in all of this technical context, but we found that the KSM feature was reducing the usage of transparent huge pages because it takes transparent huge page and says, oh, some of this is actually shared, so I'm going to break it down into small pages and then merge it between two processes, which is sort of worthy, but fights against the performance of live migration, which has become a critical thing for us because we have apps that want to run on the cloud but want to just be nonstop. So if we have a machine fault or a maintenance need for a host, we need to move them without them detecting it. So obviously, a period of network outage and a period of slow CPU is very unfortunate for such workloads.
Yeah, we had to turn off KSM for. There's a high performance network file system called GPFS from IBM, and we found that KSM caused OVN to drop enough packets to kill the clients in the guest VMs. So we had to turn that off there, but we didn't see that. Yeah, we didn't make it far enough to see it affect other things. It was we can't get our network file system to work with KSM on, and stop dead there.
That's all great information. I did actually omit to say that the more that people can capture interesting points that they hear in this thing in the Etherpad, the more valuable it is. I've done a little bit there, trying to just get down what I thought is interesting. But again, this is never a presentation. This is we get together and help each other. It's a working session, so you should feel free to just dive on there, put notes. You can also go back later and tidy up what you wrote. So don't worry about I have a typo or it's indented wrong. Like, try and capture it first, and then you can prettify it later. These Etherpads have been fantastic. I don't know if everyone knows, but the old Ops Meetup process that kind of faded away during pandemic, we kept all of the Etherpads for all of the Ops Meetups events. We did one per event because, frankly, we're traveling to another country and staying in hotels. It's worthy of a whole new pad, and they're still all there on the OpenStack wiki. So if anyone is interested in that, ping me and I can send you the link, and there's still some good information there.
And we did one per 40-minute session, actually. So there's one. They're all topic based.
Yeah, quite right.
The whole list is on the. Yeah, there's a master one that then has the links to all the individual session ones. That's on the Ops Meetup wiki, back to the dawn of time. You can see how bad things really were. It's a great history book.
I see some updates on AMD hypervisors for Windows VMs. I maybe should have said that the plan to buy a lot of AMD is not actually a done deal yet. But we're at the stage where we have two brand new test machines, 64 core Dell hypervisor candidate machines, and we do have to do testing, and maybe it won't work out anyway. The thing I was trying to highlight is the business felt that they could just buy them, and if they work today, then it's fine. And then at a later date, we'll have perfect interrupt. And it's like, no, we're not going to have perfect interrupt because we can't regress the performance of VMs that we're already supporting. We have some app teams running on our cloud that are just ferocious at performance. They talk about the end queue time of a single message on a message bus being milliseconds longer on the VM versus another platform, and they're like, can we really trust the cloud to maintain performance when we see these kinds of results? Things. There's no way we're turning off page table support, right? Just so that we can live migrate. So, but yeah, if it doesn't support Windows, that would be another black mark against it. We have Windows on our cloud.
We have read that the Windows itself is supported or is running fine. But for example, using the Windows project for hypervisation, or VirtualBox, Hyper-V or VirtualBox within that VM, using that and then running again a VM insert. So nested virtualization was not working because it was running on an AMD processor. And somehow it was incompatible between the AMD and the Windows version it was using.
But that was information.
And that was in the past. To be honest, the newer clouds that we run only has AMDs, and till now we did not hear any complaints about it. But it was for a couple of years ago in the past. So maybe it's gone and solved right now. but only wanted to tell that it was there.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that they're all AMD and no problems. I'm not trying to make a vendor point, but the business likes the prospect of up to 192 cores with 3 terabyte, and also vendor diversity is extremely important. A long time ago, Bloomberg used to run on Power and Spark, and tried to get a third port running on Itanium. Tried several times, and it was a total failure because they wanted that true diversity of chip, operating system, whole vendor organization. So us running entirely on Intel CPUs is actually, a bit of a risk, especially when Intel has had some wobbles, should we say, recently. I'm not going to, again, I don't mean to ding any vendors, but we need to have the diversity. I see a +1 for 500, 128 core Milan nodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
Is
that a request from you? Please send me that hardware.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a few years old. I'm ready to get rid of it. I want a new one, and I want to make all new mistakes.
We're targeting Zen 5 Turin, just for the record. And one nice thing about that is one of the features that our advanced users use is AVX 512 VNNI, and that used to be less performant on AMD, and then Zen 5 it is single cycle, so it's on par or better. Anyway, I think I talked over somebody, so please just speak up. We have only a couple of minutes left.
Okay, I only want to say we use 128 of 46 cores 2 times, so 128 cores in a hypervisor, and we have 2 terabytes of RAM, and we're currently looking into 3 terabytes of RAM, if that is possible. And,
yeah, it's very similar to what.
Yeah.
Similar to what we're hoping to do in the next data center, 3 terabytes, and I don't know about 128 cores, but definitely 64, 96. So just much higher density. We're going to have better cooling in the new data center, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a hard stop at the top of the hour. I'm meeting my boss. So I'd like to ask for sort of any last thoughts. One of the things that is always on the agenda is feedback about this meeting, the cadence, the timing. I think we've established that 1300 UTC is good for the likely audience, and monthly so far has worked. When I haven't been available, Eric has filled in. He's got a longer history with OpenStack in the community than I do, so it's not really a substitute. It's more like he's the OG. But I will say that someone else hosting this is also possible. This is not, again, our property. This is just our idea to kickstart something that's as cheap and easy as just another Zoom meeting on a business day. If you do have that kind of feedback, you can put it on the sheet. You could reach out to us. I think my Gmail is pretty public at this point. And we're open to other ways of communicating. I have a Mastodon account for the Ops Meetup on Fostodon. And I think Ildiko has been encouraging us to also start experimenting with the OpenStack matrix, which I haven't tried yet. So, give us feedback on these meetings, how often to have them, are they useful, how to communicate at other times. There is the mailing list, of course. But I think we are about out of time, and I, for one, have to go. So any final words? Just speak out. I see. Got to run. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Very interesting.
Thank you. Thanks for attending, everyone. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Chris. Everyone.
I love waving. I can't help it. Sorry.
See you. Bye.
Bye, folks.